I am super excited because I am super hungry. Aloha friends, and welcome to Eating Richly, where we cook mostly healthy, affordable, family-friendly recipes rich in nutrition and flavor. If you're new here, I'm Diana Johnson, cooking instructor, recipe developer, food blogger, and I would love for you to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because today we are going to be making one of my absolute favorite foods from growing up in Hawaii, Spam Musubi. If you haven't tried Spam before, I promise that you are missing out. Anybody I know on the mainland who has not liked Spam has tried eating it straight from the can. That's totally safe to do, but it's not actually the way it's meant to be eaten. You have to cook it to get that amazing, crispy, salty Spam experience. While we try to avoid most processed foods, Spam is one of those things that people from Hawaii cannot imagine life without. During World War II, the Hormel company sent about 15 million cans of Spam to Allied troops every week. In the islands, any Spam that wasn't consumed by the troops ended up in the hands and bellies of the locals. Spam is still incredibly popular in Hawaii, and one of the most common ways to eat it is Spam Musubi. The first time I tried Spam Musubi was as a 12-year-old new to Hawaii and going with the church youth group on my very first surf trip. We were doing something called Dawn Patrol, which means surfing with the sunrise, and none of us had eaten breakfast yet. So we swung by a 7-Eleven to grab something to eat in the car. Right there at the checkout counter was a big, tall, hot case filled with rows and rows and rows of perfectly plastic-wrapped rectangle squares of meat on rice wrapped in a seaweed blanket. As an adventurous eater, I followed the lead of the rest of the group, who were all locals, and grabbed 2 Spam Musubi to eat, which cost me a whole $1. It only took one bite for me to know that I had a new favorite snack. For the 15 years that I lived in Hawaii, I never actually made Spam at home. You could buy them so cheaply anywhere that the only time I made them myself was at school for a fundraiser for the science department. But once I was living on the mainland, I became pretty desperate for a taste of home and decided to buy some Spam to make myself musubi. I'm going to show you a couple of ways to make your Spam musubi. One is using a Musubi Press, which is really cheap, and you can get it on Amazon or in an Asian grocery store. I'll put a link to the one I have in Amazon in the description below. The other way is by using the actual Spam can as your mold, so you can still make them even if you don't have a Musubi Press. I'll also leave a link to the recipe on eatingrichly.com down in the description and right up here in the corner so that you can easily print the recipe if you'd like to. Now let's get cooking, because whether you're cooking with someone, or for yourself, cooking time is connecting time. The ingredients you need are a can of Spam, about 3 cups of cooked rice, and 3 to 5 sheets of Nori or seaweed. I also like to make a marinade for the Spam, which is totally optional, but adds kind of a teriyaki flavor to the meat. If you want to fry your Spam plain, that's delicious too. But if you want to make the marinade, you're going to need 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Gluten-free soy sauce or tamari works as well. 1/4 cup of rice vinegar, and 2 tablespoons of honey, sugar, or another sweetener of your choice. I like the flavor with the honey, so that's what we're using today. If you have a rice cooker, Instant Pot, or another multi-cooker that has a rice setting, you can definitely use that to make your rice for Spam Musubi. For this video, I'm going to show you how to cook rice on the stove, which can also be done on a hot plate burner, because I think it's important for everyone to know how to do that. You're going to start by rinsing your rice thoroughly. And if you haven't heard of washing your rice before, Don't worry, because I did not know about it until I was an adult and one of my Japanese aunties in Hawaii showed me how to do it. Basically, you're simply swishing the uncooked rice around in the water and then pouring water off. You want to repeat this process a few times, but you don't actually have to do it until the water runs totally clear. Another option is to put your rice in a strainer and just rinse it under running water in the sink. The reason for rinsing your rice is to get the surface starch off of each grain of rice. When this starch is in the water as you cook your rice, it prevents the rice from getting fluffy. Instead, you end up with a gummy, sticky, gooey mess. If you want to make really authentic Japanese rice, you would actually let the rice sit in water for 30 minutes after rinsing. Then you would drain the water off, and if you're using a cup and a half of uncooked rice like I am, you would add just a little bit more than a cup and a half of water. It's 390 milliliters to be exact. Honestly, I almost never do the soaking step because I'm a busy working mom, and usually when I am making rice, I am trying to make it as quickly as possible. So after rinsing the rice, I use 2 cups of water to my 1.5 cups of rice. Now put a lid on the pot and bring the water to a boil. Once it just starts to boil, turn the heat down to low and let it simmer. You're gonna let the rice cook on low for 15 minutes, keeping the lid on. Then remove the pot from the heat and let it sit with the lid on for another 10 to 15 minutes. While the rice is cooking, let's slice our Spam. However many pieces you slice your Spam into is how many musubis you can make. I usually slice it into 12 pieces, and to do this, you're gonna want to slice it in half, then slice each of those in half, then slice each of those 4 pieces into 3. Now lay your slices into a shallow dish. Then you're going to pour all of your marinade ingredients into a bowl, mix it all together, and pour it over the Spam slices. If you don't have a baking dish like I'm using, you can use a wide bowl, a baking sheet with a rim around the edge, or even put it all in a gallon zip-up bag and then squeeze the air out so that all of the meat is touching marinade. The Spam doesn't need to soak for very long, just 10 to 15 minutes. While your Spam is marinating, you can prep the Nori by slicing it into 2.5 to 3 inch wide strips. If you don't have kitchen shears like I do, you can totally just use a clean, dry pair of scissors. Then you're gonna set the seaweed strips aside and we're gonna fry up our Spam. Heat a large skillet on medium-high heat. Then add the Spam in a single layer and fry for a few minutes on each side. You want the Spam to be lightly browned with some darker bits as well. Those dark bits are called caramelization, and they add a lot of flavor to food. Once your Spam is all cooked, you're ready to assemble your musubi. Now you can wait for your rice to cool before you make your musubi, but you don't have to, and I am all about anything that saves me time. I usually just take the lid off after the rice has been sitting off of the heat for 10 to 15 minutes, and then give it a bit of a stir with a rice paddle to help fluff it up. Another option for Spam musubi is to sprinkle a little bit of rice vinegar or seasoned sushi rice vinegar onto your rice. I don't do that for Spam musubi though, I just do it when I make sushi. So first up, I'm going to show you how to make Spam musubi using a Musubi Press. Because the rice is so sticky, I suggest keeping a bowl of water close by. You can stick your fingers or your rice paddle or your Musubi Press into the water to help keep rice from sticking to them. Now you're going to loosely pack the rice into the mold about 2 inches high. Then use the press to push down hard. Once you have the rice nice and packed in there, you can use the press to gently hold it in place while you lift up the mold. Lay one of your slices of cooked Spam onto the rice. Then take a strip of Nori and find the smooth side. You'll notice one side is a little rough and the other side is nice and shiny. Place the smooth side up on your musubi, then wrap it around. Get a little water on your fingers and use that to seal the edges of the seaweed together. I tend to make my musubi a little on the thinner side for the rice. Notice the difference in the size between the two? If you want your rice to be like the thicker one, you're gonna need more cooked rice than the recipe calls for. Another thing you can customize is the width of your seaweed. You can leave it thick like I do, or cut it a bit thinner to have less seaweed around your musubi. Now, if you don't have a Musubi Press, you can actually make Spam musubi using the Spam can. This can be a little bit dangerous though, because you have to cut the bottom off of the can. If you work at it really hard, a can opener can do it, but I find that a box cutter is a lot easier for me. Notice how once you get the bottom off, there's some really sharp edges on the can. I've seen some people use duct tape to cover up the edges, but I'm not sure about how food safe that is, so I just use a method that doesn't require putting my fingers in to pack down the rice. Place your can with the top side down. That's the smooth side. The rough side, where you cut off the bottom, goes on top. Use your rice paddle to fill in a couple inches tall with rice. Now here's where people usually stick their fingers in to press down the rice. But I'm going to put a slice of Spam in and then use a spoon to push down on the Spam, using the Spam as my press. This way you can pack the rice tightly in your Spam can mold without risking your fingers. Now use the spoon to gently hold it in place while you slide the can off. Just like with the press method, wrap your seaweed around, smooth side out, and you've got another delicious Spam musubi. Repeat that with all 12 slices of Spam, and you're good to go. If you're not eating your Spam musubi immediately, place it upside down on a sheet of plastic wrap. Fold the sides over nice and tight, then twist the ends a bit until it's well sealed. Flip it over and tuck the ends underneath. You can store Spam musubi in the fridge for a few days or in the freezer for several months. I like to make a double batch and freeze them so that we have plenty on hand for a quick snack or lunches on the go. If you've got a frozen musubi, it's super easy to heat up in the microwave for 30 to 60 seconds. I'm putting mine in for 60 seconds because I know that's how long it takes. Test 30 seconds first, and then you can add more time if you need it. Okay, I microwaved it for 30 seconds right side up, then 30 seconds upside down just to make sure both sides get warmed through. And I'm just gonna let it sit for about a minute to cool off a little before I eat it. All right, all unwrapped and ready to go, and I am super excited because I am super hungry. This seriously tastes like home. I hope you love this Spam musubi recipe as much as I do, and let me know in the comments how you feel about Spam in a can. If you do happen to be as obsessed with Spam as I am, I've got links in the description to my recipes for Spam eggs and rice, Spam fried rice, and somen salad made with Spam. And remember, whether it's with me, in the comments, or out in the world, you can be real and be kind. If you're hungry for more snacks, I've got some easy peanut butter protein balls here and the best blueberry muffins over here. And I'll see you in the next video. Which is totally awesome. Optional? Awesome. I was gonna say awesome. It is awesome.